Ever feel like modern trucks have lost something? Like they're faster, cleaner, smarter, but somehow quieter in spirit? There was a time when pickup trucks didn't just move cargo. They carried stories. They rattled your bones. They smelled like oil, dust, and hard work. And some of them were so rare, so bold, that even back then people stopped and stared when they rolled by. Today, you're stepping into that forgotten world. A world of old American pickup trucks that didn't follow rules. Trucks that were built before focus groups and fuel economy charts. Some of these were produced in tiny numbers. Some vanished because they were too expensive, too strange, or too ahead of their time. And some became legends by accident. You probably know a few names. But others, you won't believe they even existed. Stick with me because the deeper we go, the rarer they get. Let's start with a truck that quietly changed everything. The Chevrolet Cameo Carrier. Back in 1955, pickups were supposed to look rough. Exposed beds, sharp lines, no frills. But Chevrolet looked at that rule and ignored it completely. The Cameo Carrier was smooth, clean, almost stylish. It used fiberglass rear panels to hide the bed seams, making it look more like a car than a work truck. At the time, people didn't know what to think. Under the hood, it could be ordered with a V8, giving it real power to match the looks. But here's the twist. It was expensive. Too expensive for most working buyers. Sales were low. And that's exactly why it's so rare today. The Cameo didn't fail. It planted the idea that pickups could be comfortable, stylish, and personal. Every luxury truck you see today traces a little of its DNA back to this forgotten experiment. But if that one surprised you, the next truck takes rare to a whole new level. The Dodge Power Wagon civilian version. This wasn't just inspired by the military. It was the military. After World War II, Dodge took its proven battlefield truck and offered it to civilians almost unchanged. Flat fenders, tall stands, massive tires. This thing looked like it could climb a wall. And it almost could. With solid axles, low gearing, and unmatched durability, it became the ultimate off-road pickup decades before that term even existed. Farmers loved it. Construction crews relied on it. But everyday drivers? Not so much. It was loud, heavy, slow, and thirsty. That meant limited buyers, which means limited survivors. Today, finding an original civilian power wagon is like finding a piece of the war that never really ended. And the sound of that engine still feels like a marching drum. Now, let's talk about a truck that most Americans never saw new. A Mercury M100 series pickup. If you've never heard of it, you're not alone. Mercury, Ford's upscale brand, sold these trucks almost exclusively in Canada. They were essentially Ford pickups underneath, but dressed differently. Unique grills, Mercury badges, subtle trim changes that made them stand out if you knew what to look for. They weren't flashy. They weren't advertised heavily. They were just there, working quietly in cold fields and small towns. And because many were later converted into regular Fords during restorations, original Mercury trucks are disappearing fast. Every untouched one that remains is a survivor of ignorance as much as time. But rarity isn't always about geography. Sometimes it's about timing. Take the Studebaker Champ. In the early 1960s, Studebaker was struggling. Money was tight. Time was running out. So they did something clever. They took car front ends and welded them onto pickup beds. The result looked strange, even back then. But it worked. The Champ was lighter, more comfortable, and easier to drive than many full-size trucks of its era. Some even came with supercharged engines. But buyers were unsure. Was it a car? Was it a truck? The market didn't wait for answers. Studebaker left the pickup business shortly after. And just like that, the Champ became a rolling question mark from a company that disappeared entirely. And then there's the truck that feels almost mythical. The Ford F100 Twin I-Beam Custom Cab. On paper, it was just an F100. But certain configurations were built in such low numbers that collectors still argue over how many exist. Special trims, factory options, unique combinations that were never properly documented. Some had heavy-duty suspension meant for brutal work. Others had comfort features that were unusual for the time. These trucks weren't rare because Ford wanted them to be. They're rare because buyers unknowingly created unicorns by ticking the right boxes on an order form decades ago. Some were out there, some of them are still hiding in barns, waiting to be rediscovered. And just when you think you've seen it all, you stumble across something like the International Harvester Travelette. 4 doors, a full-size pickup. In the early 1960s, long before crew cabs became normal, International built a truck that could carry a whole crew without sacrificing the bed. At first, it only had one rear door. Yes, just one. Later versions got all 4. It was practical, ugly to some, perfect to others. Contractors loved it. Families ignored it. That imbalance kept production low. And today, restored travelettes are among the most sought-after vintage work trucks on the planet. And here's the thing you start to realize. These trucks weren't rare because they were weak. They were rare because they were different. Because they asked the world a question it wasn't ready to answer yet. But the next truck on this list, it wasn't misunderstood. It was almost erased. And once you hear its story, you'll understand why collectors chase it like a ghost. Asterisk, you're still with me. And that's good, because now we're entering the territory where rarity turns into obsession. This is where trucks stop being just old machines and start becoming legends people spend decades hunting. Let's talk about the GMC C-Clone's spiritual ancestors. Trucks that hinted at speed long before performance pickups were even a concept. One of those was the Dodge Lil Red Express, but what most people don't realize is that it wasn't just a novelty. Released in the late 1970s during the height of emissions restrictions, this truck somehow became one of the fastest American vehicles of its time. Not trucks, vehicles. Dodge exploited a loophole that allowed pickups to run without catalytic converters, meaning the engine could breathe freely while muscle cars were being strangled. The result was a pickup with vertical chrome exhaust stacks behind the cab, like a semi-truck that had been partying too hard. It looked outrageous. It sounded even crazier. And because it didn't fit the era's narrative of slow, fuel-conscious vehicles, production stayed limited. Today, finding an unmodified Lil Reed Express feels like uncovering proof that rebellion still existed in the darkest days of American performance. But speed alone doesn't make a truck legendary. Sometimes it's about being first. And few trucks dared to be first like the Kaiser Jeep M715. This was a military truck sold directly to civilians in the late 1960s. No softening, no compromises. It was tall, loud, uncomfortable, and absolutely unstoppable. Designed for the battlefield, it used a massive inline-6 engine and heavy-duty axles meant to survive explosions, not potholes. Civilians who bought it knew exactly what they were getting into, or at least they thought they did. It was hard to drive, hard to stop, hard to maintain. Many were worked to death. Others were cut up, repurposed, or stripped for parts. That's why surviving civilian M715s are now almost sacred among collectors. When you see one today, you're not just looking at a truck. You're looking at a machine that refused to pretend it was anything else. Now let me tell you about a truck that almost feels like a mistake that slipped through history. The Chevrolet El Camino was never meant to be rare. But certain early models, especially late 1950s versions with specific engine and trim combinations, have become incredibly scarce. This wasn't a pickup in the traditional sense. It was a car with a bed. And that confused people. Farmers didn't trust it. Car buyers didn't understand it. But those who did buy one discovered something special. It drove like a car. It worked like a truck. And it looked like nothing else on the road. The earliest El Caminos were built for a market that didn't exist yet. That mismatch is exactly why they're so valuable now. They weren't wrong. They were early darts, and speaking of early ideas, few trucks were as quietly revolutionary as the Ford Ranchero. It arrived before the El Camino and set the tone for the entire car-truck hybrid idea. Based on full-size Ford cars, the early Rancheros were smooth, low, and comfortable. You could haul supplies during the day and take it to dinner at night. But the market wasn't ready. Buyers didn't know which box to put it in. Over time, Ford shrank it, changed it, and eventually let it fade away. The earliest full-size Rancheros, especially those with rear engine options, are now among the hardest to find. They weren't abused like work trucks. They were simply forgotten. And forgotten machines are often the hardest to recover. Now we need to talk about a truck that feels almost unreal when you see it in person. The International Harvester Scout pickup variant. Most people know the Scout as an SUV, but early versions were offered with open beds, removable tops, and configurations that blurred every line between Jeep, truck, and utility vehicle. They were built for farmers, surveyors, and people who needed to go places roads didn't exist yet. They weren't flashy. They weren't fast. But they were unstoppable. Production numbers were low because International never pushed them hard. They were tools, not lifestyle vehicles. That mindset kept them under the radar. Today, restored Scout pickups are exploding in value because people are finally realizing how advanced they were for their time. And then there's the truck that makes even seasoned collectors pause. The Dodge D100 Custom Sport Special. On the surface, it looks like a normal classic Dodge pickup, but certain versions came with factory muscle car engines, heavy-duty suspension, and performance tuning that turned them into sleepers. These trucks could embarrass cars at stoplights while hauling lumber in the bed, but they were expensive. And buyers who wanted performance usually went straight to muscle cars instead. That left these trucks stuck in the middle, misunderstood and underproduced. Many were worked hard and discarded. That's why finding one today feels like finding a muscle car wearing work boots. By now, you're probably noticing a pattern. The rarest trucks aren't always the ones that tried to be flashy. They're the ones that didn't fit neatly into a category. They confused buyers. They challenged expectations, and because of that, they slipped through the cracks of history. But the next truck didn't slip through cracks. It fell straight through the floor, and its story might be the strangest one yet, because this next pickup wasn't built by a truck company at all. It was built by a luxury brand trying to survive, and almost nobody saw it coming. Good. Because now we're stepping into the part of history where even longtime truck fans start doubting their own memory. This is where the trucks weren't just rare, they were almost erased. Built by companies on the edge, during moments when one wrong decision could end everything. And sometimes it did. Let's talk about Hudson. Most people remember Hudson for sleek sedans and racing success in the early 1950s. But almost nobody remembers that Hudson quietly built pickup trucks right after World War II. The Hudson Big Boy pickup was produced in extremely small numbers between 1946 and 1947. It looked nothing like a traditional work truck. It looked like a luxury car that accidentally grew a bed. Long hood, rounded fenders, chrome details everywhere. Underneath, it used Hudson car components, which made it smoother and more comfortable than most pickups of the time. But that also made it expensive. Farmers couldn't justify it. Businesses didn't trust it. And Hudson itself didn't push it hard because the company was already struggling. Most big boys were worked until they died or scrapped when parts became hard to find. Today, only a handful are known to exist. When one appears at auction, it stops the room cold. You're not just seeing a truck. You're seeing a brand's last gamble on survival. Now imagine a pickup that predates most of what we consider modern truck design. The Plymouth PT50. Plymouth wasn't known for trucks. It was known for affordable cars. But in the late 1930s, they decided to test the waters. The PT50 looked elegant, almost delicate compared to other pickups of the era. It shared styling cues with Plymouth sedans, including a long nose and graceful curves. It was powered by a simple inline-six, nothing flashy, but dependable. The problem wasn't the truck. It was timing. World War II was coming. Production stopped, and Plymouth never returned to the pickup market after the war. That single interruption sealed the PT50's fate. Many were repurposed, many were lost, and because they didn't look like real trucks, collectors ignored them for decades. Now, they're considered some of the rarest American pickups ever built. And then there's the truck that feels like it shouldn't exist at all, the Studebaker M series. Studebaker was always different. They built vehicles that looked like they came from the future. Their pickups were no exception. The M series trucks of the 1940s had a cab-forward design, pushing the cabin over the front axle. This gave better visibility and improved cargo space, but it also made the truck look strange to buyers used to long hoods. Under the hood sat a reliable inline-six. Nothing wild, but the layout was revolutionary. Unfortunately, buyers weren't ready. Sales were low. Studebaker moved on. And because these trucks were seen as odd, few people bothered to preserve them. Today, a clean M series pickup feels like a message from an alternate timeline where trucks evolved very differently. Now, let's talk about one of the most emotionally charged trucks on this list. The early Ford F1. Not because it's the rarest by numbers, but because original, untouched examples are disappearing fast. Introduced right after World War II, the F1 represented hope. Returning soldiers bought them. Businesses restarted with them. Farms rebuilt with them. These trucks worked hard. Very hard. They weren't collectibles. They were lifelines. That's why so many were used up completely. Finding one today that hasn't been heavily modified or restored beyond recognition is incredibly difficult. When you see a survivor with original paint and dents, you're looking at history written directly into steel. And here's something that still shocks people. Chevrolet didn't always dominate the pickup market the way you think. In the 1940s and early 1950s, companies like International Harvester often outsold them in rural areas. One of the rarest examples is the International KB series pickup. These trucks were brutally simple. Thick steel, minimal trim, built for farms, not highways. They weren't fast, they weren't stylish, but they were unstoppable. The reason they're rare today isn't because they were unpopular. It's because they were too good at their jobs. They were worked until there was nothing left. When one shows up now, usually still wearing scars from decades of labor, it tells a story no restored show truck ever could. And now we reach the point where rarity turns into near myth. Because the next truck isn't just hard to find. Some collectors will go their entire lives without ever seeing one in person. The GMC 1954 5-star pickup with factory hydromatic transmission. This was one of the earliest automatic-equipped pickups offered to the public. At a time when trucks were expected to be rough and manual only, GMC quietly offered something radical: comfort, ease, automatic shifting. Buyers didn't trust it. They worried it wouldn't last under heavy work. So very few were ordered this way. Most were worked hard and later converted or scrapped. Finding one today with its original drivetrain intact is like finding proof that the future tried to arrive early. By now, you can probably feel it. These trucks aren't just rare because of numbers. They're rare because people didn't believe in them when they were new. They challenged ideas of what a truck should be, and the world wasn't ready. But the final part of this journey isn't about failure or misunderstanding. It's about obsession. About the trucks that collectors chase for decades. The ones that cause arguments, rumors, and legends. And the next one, some people still argue whether it even officially existed.